Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own Money Whisperer, Judy Copenbarger. How are you?
I am fantastic. It's good to see you. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Yeah, I've been looking forward to our show. We got a great show for you guys today, so make sure you share out our stream. If you're not following Judy, do so at judycopenbarger.com or talk about our website and some of the resources available there as well a little later on in the show. But hey, I'm excited about today's topic because, we've talked about investments before. We've talked about different ways for you to start planning for your future. We've touched everything from, preparing your kids to the elderly to our seniors and all that good stuff. But something that keeps coming up, and it seems to be, it's almost like a roller coaster, right? When we're talking about investments, it's the big, and like I'm gonna say, like it's like the bad word, the B word, right? For Bitcoin, right? Everybody talks about Bitcoin, right? What the heck is Bitcoin? So I wanted us to do a deep dive today because there's a lot of information out there. Some people tell you this is where take your $100,000 that you have in your savings and put it all in Bitcoin. Other people tell you not to. You know what I mean? So there's all of these folks. You hear terms like I'm going to do mining, coin mining. It's like, what the heck is coin mining, right? There's no physical, like in the old days, in the old West, right? You're mining for gold, so that was a whole different ballgame. There's tangible stuff. So enough about me, yapping away here. Talk to us about Bitcoin. Talk to us about that, just, what that is and what have you seen? And I'm sure you've got a lot to cover on this.
Well, yeah, well, you probably saw my face. It's like, take your $100,000 life savings and not just that it's Bitcoin, but don't put anything ever all in one place. Wow. But I come from a pretty conservative background, not politically, but I mean, just like steady plotting. Don't take more risk than you need to. Plan for your fixed expenses in the future with something that's solid, something that has a track record to it. That's kind of a conservative approach to investing. So anything I'm sharing is not necessarily the gospel. It's just something that does work. And it doesn't mean there are not other methods or other programs that can work. But this one is tried and true no matter what the market does, whether we're in recession or recovering, whether we're going to war or not, all of these things that happen. We have the big 2008 perfect storm economically. No matter what's happening, you're going to weather well if you just take a very conservative, steady plotting kind of approach. And that's how I've always handled our money and our clients' money. So we don't take undue risk. We don't take unnecessarily, Hail Marys. And, you always want to use that hindsight that we have and go back and, oh, I wish I would have bought Amazon. I wish I would have bought IBM. I wish I would have bought whatever, just when it started. Well, wouldn't we all? When the first IPO comes out, it's like, yeah, I was the first one to invest. And my 37 cents a share is now worth $500 a share. We'd all love that. And once in a while, that happens to people. And that's great. But when you're looking at investments of any kind, not just, the cyber world, but any kind of investments, you want to make sure that you have a way to have a little bit of control. And you definitely want to consider diversification. That's one of the easiest, most common ways to reduce risk by diversifying. And so maybe you'll have one or two of those little pieces that, are the Hail Mary and they just blow up on you in a good way. And you make millions of dollars from that. But you'll have others that maybe fail at some point, and they might even get a little traction as a company and you own stock. And then all of a sudden, the value goes down. The world changes. The economy changes. The sector changes. Sometimes it's just a stroke of a pen. The regulations change. And some company that was thriving now isn't. And we've seen that in the last few years with policy changes, right, in the politics. And so, some genre of business that was there now isn't. And then there's always new ones that come. This last couple of years, you hear a lot about the green, going green and things that are related to solar and to wind, alternative energy sources. And so there's companies cropping up all over related to that. Our food has also changed, food sources. So there are genres of businesses relating to those things that weren't there before. So you always want to, when you're investing, diversify, look across the board, You don't have to just, buy and hold forever, but you want to have a portfolio of investments. And here we're talking mostly commodities and stocks, where you own something. You want to always have a way to do that. Now, back to your question. What do we do with this blockchain, NFTs? What do we do with Bitcoin and all of these new kinds of, investments, loosely termed from my opinion, because they're new, right? And we don't know what's going to happen. Where'd they come from? Where are they going? Nobody knows. It's new. And the concern that I have with Bitcoin, and what I usually share when people say, oh, it's a great deal, and my friend made a lot of money, I went online and, in a week I doubled my money. Well, is it really money? Is it really liquid? Can you pull it back out? Is it really, and where does the valuation come from? You talked about mining for gold. Well, gold, you actually had a tangible item that could be used somehow, jewelry or, money or whatever it's used for. In any kind of mining like that, there's something tangible at the source, so there's a valuation of an item. With this whole cyber world, the Bitcoin and all of these, now there's thousands of companies that are, that came out of that whole world. Where does the valuation come from? And if you don't know, or if some stroke of the pen or some click of the keyboard, somebody can just change the valuation based on, some supply and demand curve that maybe exists, maybe it doesn't. How do you know what you actually are holding? Other than today, somebody wants to buy what you have for, $3, and yesterday you bought it for $2. Well, if you can sucker them into buying it today for $3, take it. Take your money and run. But the basis of the valuation is what concerns me. What are we actually putting that number, tying that number to, right? And it's something outside of our control. And I'm not old enough where I don't appreciate computers and technology and all of this amazing, new way that money moves. But if at some point, the power goes out or the account gets locked or somebody hacks into it, your value is gone. And I've had people share that with me. The 50,000 they invested is gone because the password was changed and they can't get to it. What do you do now? Right? It's like you can't go to the bank and say, give me a bag full of money, or, dig it up from the backyard where you buried it in a hole. How do you recover? So that's a risk, right? And I think it's a real risk to consider, just like other risks to any kind of investment. So that's one thing that, that I would say, if you're going to do it, I wouldn't do that with your fixed needed dollars, the money you're going to retire on, or the money that you're saving for that big Hawaii trip. I wouldn't do it with something that you want to make sure is there. But if you have all of those needs met and your planning is in place, your 401k is funded and all of that, then I think it's probably okay to invest in some Bitcoin or do something like that. Personally, I wouldn't, and I wouldn't want my family to. That's just me. And so if you do it with kind of the spirit of, let's see what happens. And it doesn't have to be just Hail Mary like that. Let's take a chance like that. But, some people love to go to Atlantic City. They like to go to Las Vegas, Monaco. They go to these places where gambling is an entertainment.
Right.
And I think if you treat the Bitcoin as an entertainment, it's like, well, let's see what happens. This is going to be exciting. We'll watch it go up and down and hopefully up, and we'll cash out in time. I think if you treat it more like an entertainment or the chance part of your portfolio, then you're okay. But I wouldn't do that with necessary retirement funds or goal funds that you need. It's just too much risk. And often I will tell a story of the Beanie Babies. And I think this might be helpful for people that are considering investing in Bitcoin or something like that.
The Beanie Babies, man, that brings back a lot of memories. For sure. Yep.
Remember, everybody collected the bears and the unicorns and the tigers and all those, and they all had names. It was just kind of charming. But if you think about how the marketing went, it reminds me so much of all this cyber investment world. If you think about it, you would go buy your Beanie Baby for $3, $4, $5, whatever they were back in I think it was the 80s, right? It seems like our older kids had them when they were little. And people would collect them and they'd buy one for 5 and try to sell it for 8. And then there was Princess Di, that one was worth hundreds, and the Queen, and all those values that were put on these collectibles. Well, if you think about it from the company's perspective, they could make as many of any of those as they want. And then they'd put out a catalog every month and they'd say, here's the value of these Beanie Babies. Well, all you got to do is say the value was $5, now it's 20, and we're going to now manufacture another 100,000 of them. That's and sell them for that kind of money, right? But if you think about it, the people that owned the Beanie Babies, the kids or the whoever collected them, they had no control over the value of them. It was just what somebody would pay for it that day. And at some point, it wasn't the trend anymore. It went on to something else. I think it went on to the virtual pets, the little dog that you fake fed. And,
Yeah.
there's always some trendy thing for kids, right? And then it was the Pokemon cards, collectibles, again, with a valuation that the company put on it for you. But you don't really have control. As an investment, you don't have control of what the value is. Now, at least with Beanie Babies, you had a tangible, cute,
Right.
item. And so I think maybe Beanie Babies probably were and are a better risk investment wise than some Bitcoin. That's my perspective. At least you got something, at least you got what
Right.
you paid for it way back. But that's kind of the risk there is, how is the valuation made? What is it based upon? Is there anything at the core of it? And I don't think there is. I think it's just, we put on name one, there's 1,000 of them, but if we put on XYZ Bitcoin or something like it, a $2 value, and then next week, somebody wants to pay 5 for it, where does that come from? Or 10 or 20? And I know sometimes, people really time it right and they do well. But just like at Vegas, you get all excited and then you throw all that back in, and then pretty soon there's an implosion. And it's like, shoot, I lost everything I gained plus, some of my principal, if not all of it.
Yeah.
So it's just a risk. So I know that was, a lot to share about how I feel about it and what it is and how it works. Um, it's just beyond my risk tolerance. And for most people that I share, that I counsel for and I manage money for, it's usually not part of a basic portfolio. If they want to go play, in that, then just play with what you can afford to lose. So,
You brought up some great points, and I think it's that hype buildup, right? Because I
mhm.
remember also, aside from the Beanie Babies, there was one year I remember, and this is well done during Christmas time, like for the kids, right? Do you remember there was an old stuffed animal called the Furby or something like that? And I think it's
Oh
because he
yeah.
closed his eye. You remember that?
Yep.
So it was like a $7, ugly looking thing, but all of a sudden, it's just if you couldn't find it, people were spending 3, 4, $500 for one of these little things on there. So it's that like with anything else, PlayStation or whatever, when they're first going to come out, people just buy them in bundles and then they like double the price on them just because it's so hard to find. It's
Mhm.
that it's that marketing gimmick of just building up that hype. And I think part of what you're talking about, I think it's also that with Bitcoin is something new. You want to be the first one, just like in anything else, right? So like
Mhm.
you mentioned companies, the IPOs and stuff, and it's like say, hey, I want to own a piece of Facebook or I want to do this, but that's a prime example. You looked at that when they launched, they were selling all of this stuff, and all of a sudden it tanked. Like I think it was like a couple weeks later, or went way down. Um, what I'm getting at with this is what advice, people are impulsive, right? When they see something new and people keep talking and building that hype, hey, I want a piece of that. I don't want to lose out on this. And people have a tendency to just bet everything on red, bet everything on black or whatever
Mhm.
and see what happens, right? Walk us through actually common sense things that we should actually consider before saying, "Hey, Judy, invest $200,000 on just the Furby or whatever." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It just came to mind. Tickle Me Elmo was one of the
Oh
Christmas
yes,
ones. Remember
yep,
that one?
yeah,
Oh, and
yeah,
people were lining up around overnight, to try to get one of those for their little kids. It's like, wow. But we didn't really do a lot of trendy at our house. Our kids kind of tease that, it's like, go build a fort, do something creative, get your Legos out or something. And they said that, we made him play with sticks and rocks. And it's like, yeah, we kind of did. Go build something or dig a hole or something. One of our sons, when he was probably, I don't know, 8 or so, 7 or 8, we had a property that had, a lot of space. And so he wanted to dig a hole, and he was out there, and it was very hard pan clay, heavy soil, a lot of work. And he was out there sweating and digging and for days, and he was going to make a fort, like underground fort. So he had this massive hole. It looked like a mass grave. It's like, what are you doing? But we would say, what are you digging out there for hours and hours and sweating? And he'd say, I'm building character. It's like, yes, you are. Yep. I don't know where he heard that, but it's like, yeah, that'll do it. Awesome. Dig a hole and then fill it up, for no reason other than building character. So anyway, that just that was a little aside. But let's get back to these investments. So something that works, usually when you say investments, people think stock. The stock market. And there are many stock markets around the world. You think, the New York Exchange is kind of the one that they show on TV and all the scrolling every night with those initials and numbers and stuff. So that's usually what people think of. And what I would call that is an equity market. And equity means, well, if you own your home, you have so much that the bank owns of your home for most people. And then you have the equity. That's the actual part, the piece of it that is your money. That is in the foundation of your home. It's what you own. So when we talk about stock, we talk about equity, we talk about any interest like that where you actually own something. That's where when the company, IBM or Amazon, they make money, they share the profit with you because you're an owner. You own a little slice of this big pie, this big business. They make a profit, you get a dividend. If the value of the company goes up, the value of what you're holding, that little percentage of stock, goes up. So those are all words associated with ownership, equity. There's also this whole genre, this whole area of investments that are totally unrelated to the stock market, which, you mentioned, you said roller coaster, and people right now are feeling like it is because election years, we always have more movement, more volatility in the stock market, in the equity market. But there are what we call non-corollary asset classes. Things that really the stock market going up and down, the economy going up and down doesn't really impact them. And one area of investments are the interest related investments. They usually go the opposite way of the stock market. This year's a little unusual because we had COVID recovery and some policies put in place that are kind of changing. When the government gets involved, it kind of messes up all the cycles that we can count on. That's just the truth. It makes some of the bad parts longer. It takes more recovery because of some of the rules that they put in place, and that we're experiencing that now. But when it comes back to this area of investment, that's not where you own, but where you loan. That's where we're looking at instruments or investment opportunities that are not necessarily stock related or equity related, but they're related to interest rates. And that would be things like bonds, things like commercial paper, treasury bills, treasury notes. That's when you're loaning your money and you get an interest back on the money that you've loaned rather than dividends because there's a profit. So it's a whole different way of investing, but it's powerful to have both because if you have just the right pie, the right allocations, a certain percentage here and a certain percentage there, pretty much there's always something that's making you money. So if the market's down, your interest related instruments will do better. If the interest is up, that means the stock market's going to go the opposite, right? So those are, it's kind of an inverted relationship between stocks and bonds, just to kind of overgeneralize. But these non-corollary assets, this is a whole asset class that the market going up and down doesn't really impact them. The interest rates going up or down doesn't really impact them. They are non-correlated, right? They kind of do their own thing. They have their own cycles. And that would be things like real estate, some business interest, some speculation, some I'm kind of thinking like, drilling for oil, which right now is kind of a political hot topic, but drilling for oil, energy related sectors, and we talked a little bit about sectors that come and go. I think food sources, energy sources are going to be a brand new, like in 2 years, we're going to look back and go, I didn't even see that coming. Somebody did, some engineers out there and some really smart people that are working on these projects. No, but for us regular people, it's like, oh, you grow corn and you have, corn oil and you have, the sugar pops in the pantry and all this stuff. Well, things are changing, and food sources and all of these energy related things, they're changing. So there's going to be a whole new set of investments that may or may not be related to the markets at all, or may not be related to the interest rates at all. So we're kind of always watching for those. It's new and exciting, and we'll see. Space is one of them. Technology a few years ago was one of them. It's like, we don't know where it's going to go. Who knew, right? 20 years ago, who knew? What? And 20 years from now, we'll probably be doing this via hologram or something. I mean,
Right.
maybe not even 20 years from now. And what's transportation going to look like? I can picture, the Jetsons, where we're up in these little, magnetic cars up in the sky. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? And now they're planning, all this stuff in space, and some of it we know, some of it, unless you know somebody in the industry, it's, unknown to us still, but it's coming. So anyway, I just get excited about how malleable, how changeable, how much transition there is in the investment world, because our world is changing, our globe is changing. And so there's always new opportunities coming. But kind of going back to these intangibles, it's like, be careful with those. The things that you can't see, be careful with those. So there's, the equity, there's the interest related, the non-corollary. There's always new trends that come. Another thing that we should probably talk about is the contracts as an investment class. So a contract is where you're going to see like life insurance, cash proceeds, where there's an investment option, annuities. Those are contracts where if something happens, you have a guarantee of some sort. It might be a death benefit. That's pretty simple. You die, somebody gets a check. But a lot of these investment insurance wrapped investment vehicles are really good during your lifetime as well. Again, for that safety piece. And so an example would be, let's take a variable annuity, for example. A variable annuity is an investment, kind of like a stock or bond portfolio, mutual funds usually, that are wrapped in insurance. And so if you had a year where it went up 10%, you get that. If you had a year where it maybe only went up 2%, maybe you're guaranteed 5 or 6. So no matter what, you have that interest rate that you're going to get. But if the market does better than that, they'll give you that. And then a lot of those insurance wrap products give you a guarantee that you won't lose your principal. And that's usually why people want them, like for their retirement funds. A lot of teachers use them. A lot of public employees use them in their 403B investments, where there's some kind of an annuity where you're guaranteed not to lose, what you've gained or what you started with. And so those are, I would call that contract, or that genre contracts. Different annuities and 403Bs. Usually it's a guaranteed kind of an annuity, a fixed rate. But that's a class that is worth considering from a conservative perspective. For the part you can't afford to lose. I mean, this is how we're going to eat in our later years. You might want to consider something that has a guarantee on it, and contracts are going to be where the guarantees are because they're contracts. So things like that. Let's see. Cash. I mean, I wouldn't consider cash an investment. I would consider it a cash, reserve, which can help you avoid on the expenses side, spending too much on leverage, or having to use credit card or consumer debt. Having cash being your own bank, when you need money, you go to your own bank instead of borrowing and paying for the money. That's always a good thing too. So I would not overlook cash or cash-like options like CDs as an investment class. Although your returns will be lower, it's going to give you that safety net, and everybody should have some cash. So that's it. Stocks, bonds, the Bitcoin trends, NFTs, blockchain, all of this, intangible. What do I really own? Is it IP? Is it intellectual property I own? Is it a piece of something that somebody else makes up and it's a moving target? What is it really? So I usually say steer away from those and stick with the stuff that we know works.
Excellent. And actually, that leads me perfectly into the next segment, which is talk about judycopenbarger.com. Let's see if we can do this very briefly because I don't want to miss a very important part of our show that's coming up also. So, folks, thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us now, watch the beginning of the show. We've been talking about Bitcoin, all of this great stuff regarding investment. Please share out the stream. But more importantly, we talked about resources available. Judy, talk about judycopenbarger.com.
Yeah, well, it's got a great name. JudyCopenbarger.com. Not very original, but it works and you can find me there. But it's a website that we put together for all you folks that are really interested in navigating money well for you and your family and avoiding costly mistakes, avoiding an implosion or where you have to reboot, and start all over financially. Many of us have had that experience. And if you've done it once, you don't want to do it again. It's a place for people to learn from other people's triumphs and mistakes, so you don't have to go make your own. So there are all kinds of helpful videos on there. There are articles that you can read and go, oh, I was getting ready to make this choice, or I was talking to my insurance guy or my attorney about some estate planning or my investment, payroll department. I was looking at 401k options that I have, all of those things. Just going in a little bit more informed, is always good. And you can go, oh, I was going to do that, but now I see I should probably think of some other options. So it's a place for you to do that. There's a whole course there. If you go to judycopenbarger.com, there's a little green button that'll take you to the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program. And it's a course filled with the 5 pillars of finance and classes in each course of everything you need to know, like we're discussing today. So there's the investments, the estate planning. If you own a business, when should I incorporate? Did I do it too soon? Should it be a partnership? Should it be an FLP? What should I do corporately, with my small business or my ministry? And when do I do that? When does it make sense financially to do these things? Everything from, wills and trusts and stocks and bonds and all the different kinds of insurance that you may have in your life, maybe some that you don't need and some that you should consider. So it goes through all of that, and it's just laid out in simple courses for you to follow and learn enough to know what you didn't know before, so you can ask the right questions of the professionals that are serving you.
All right. And it's almost at the end of the show, and you know what that means, right? It's our Money Truth Challenge.
I do know what it means.
All
Yes.
right.
Challenge. When we spend time together, if you're out there, listening to the podcast or you're watching this live, I always want you to have an action, not just learn something that's, hopefully you're entertained, but, I really want your life to be better because we spent this time together. And so I always like to have a challenge for you, something where you can put to use what you've been hearing. So the first thing, it's a 3-part challenge, pen and paper. I think there's value to pen and paper, not just clicking away on your keyboard or on your phone. But the first thing is to kind of take a look at your investments. Look at, where your allocations are. Do you have all your eggs in one basket? Do you need more baskets? Do you need more eggs? What do you need to do there? Just take a look and assess it. Maybe you could draw a pie and like percentages, where you have it. I have some 401k, some 403b, some IRA, I've got a couple CDs at the bank, whatever it is. And so just kind of draw the allocation. And the second thing is to balance it. So consider in our next presentation here, we're going to be talking about how to balance that, how to allocate that properly to weather these storms. So take a look at what percentages that you have. And if you need to add something, add an allocation. If you need to maybe, not have so much in that one basket, maybe you have more Bitcoin than you need, cash out if you can. Maybe you have more CDs than you need, or more cash than you need, or more in the market than you need. What would it take to rebalance? That's the second thing. And the third thing is take action. Now that you have looked at that, you've done just a little mini analysis of that. And if you need help with what your pie should look like with the goals that you have and where you are in life, go to that Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program and look at some of the investments. And there are some very simple, great tools there you can print out, or you can, draw your own to really give you a good basis for your own planning at your house. So take action, do something by Sunday night at 5 o'clock. Make it a goal, put it on your calendar, do something, not just stew about it. That's your challenge.
Excellent, folks. And again, reach out to us if you have any questions. If you want to see also additional topics on the show, we'd be more than happy to address them here as well. Remember, if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. Watch the beginning of the show. Watch some of the different series that we've been able to discuss here with Judy. And if you're not following Judy, do so at judycopenbarger.com. We are here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Watch the replay on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Judy, any final thoughts?
Yeah, with everything going on in the news and in the economy, and it's like the whole world's kind of, tremoring right now. It always seems like that when we're in it. And there's some things going on economically, and it's an election coming up, all of that drama. I would say what the Brits say as just advice for this week, just keep calm and carry on. This too shall pass. There you go.
Great way to end the show. I'll see you next week, Judy. Take care.
Blessings.